start again. It's a rich thing.
Hey guys, since y'all voted for it, here it is, my WINDRAGER spec. I bet you guys like that 40k burst, right? Well, anyways, as usual, let's get into it. So let me just start off with my gear. My gear is the same as my ambidextrous build, so if you watch that, then you can just skip this. But if you didn't watch it, you should check that out too, because that spec is actually more crazy than this spec. So I'll just hover over and then you guys take a look at it. So let me just break down the RE a bit so you guys can understand how it works. When you have WINDRAGER equipped, your Storm Strike changes into a Wind Strike, and your Hurricane changes into Hurricane Strike. Hitting critical strikes with Wind Strike reduces the cooldown whirlwind by 4 seconds, and every time you do like physical damage, you have a 10% chance to proc Hurricane Strike. I actually think this proc rate is too low and should be increased to like maybe 20 or 30% because it feels really inconsistent, to be honest. But you know, you just gotta deal with it. So it's very important to have high critical chance, because when you crit, as I mentioned, it reduces the cooldown of whirlwind by 4 seconds, and using whirlwind increases the damage of your next wind strike by 4%, stacking up to 10. So you really want to get this stacked up fast by having more crits to reduce whirlwind's cooldown, and that's pretty much the build. As for the other REs, I'm just taking all of the Wind Fury modifiers, so you know, Ben's Thunderian, Wind Slam. So for Wind Slam, I'm not using Slam. I just have it for the Wind Fury proc. It does make a difference, so it's good to have this. I don't really see like another RE that can replace it, but you know, guys, feel free to experiment. You know, find out what's better. But yeah, so I'm just taking these three for Wind Fury. Then of course I'm taking Draconic Storm Strike for the crit, as I mentioned. Gale Winds, if you guys don't know, since Hurricane Strike scales with hurricane modifiers, and Gale Winds modifies hurricane, so this is just 15% damage to your Hurricane Strike. Then Hack and Slash, dual spell specialization, haste and storm strike. So here's the single target DPS for this spec. You know, as usual, we just we'll press all the cooldowns, charge in. And the macro half of this is just Wind Strike and Whirlwind, so you just spam that macro as your main rotation. And then if you get any procs to Hurricane Strike, of course you press that first, and then you just repeat the macro. So for Raging Blows, you only press Raging Blows if you have like no resets or no procs. So yeah, that's pretty much the whole rotation. It's just really proc reliant on RNG. But yeah, sometimes Hurricane Strike doesn't really proc that much, and you just dip in DPS because it doesn't proc. That's what I was mentioning. It needs to be increased proc chance, because you know it's really inconsistent. But yeah, it is what it is. So I just want to talk about how I test my DPS and why I test the way I do. So in the first clip you see I'm doing like 30k DPS, but on the dummy I'm doing like 22k here. So what gives? On the first clip I'm fully rate buffed with consumables and everything, so of course the DPS will rise. The reason I test the way I do is because repeatability. Basically I show you everything that you need. So I show all my auras, I show my gear, I show my REs, and I even give you the build link so you can just copy the exact build. And if you don't change anything, and you have the same exact gear as me, then you will pretty much do the same DPS as I'm doing if you're following my rotation, right? And that's pretty much my goal. I want to make sure that this spec does what it's doing as I'm showing here, and it just serves as an easier baseline for me to gauge and for you guys to see as well, right? I mean, it's not the full potential of the spec, of course, but it will give you a good idea of what it can do. Like I'd say anything right now that is doing 20k DPS without any rate buff is pretty top tier already. So I just want to mention that for you guys to keep in mind. So in terms of AoE, of course, it's going to be good, right? It's WINDRAGER. WINDRAGER has always been good at AoE. So I don't have much to say here. But yeah, guys, here's my spec. And I hope you guys liked this and hope you guys learned something. Thanks for watching.